And we are live. Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Coach David here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. What's up, Coach?
Professor Muhammad, how we doing, brother?
Doing good. Doing good.
So, Professor, you're just always you're always working. You know that? Like yesterday was Christmas Day, and you're where I understand. It's slightly different, but you're just
Yeah,
always working on something. So, and
always.
and you're pushing. What are you? 47 now? 47 or 48?
49.
Oh,
Going
49.
strong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going strong.
They so that is I like when we're able to make time for these. We've got several really good topics that I want to go into, and let's get right into the first one. You and I were just talk. If a child comes through the roof, just ignore it. We'll just keep the show going. If Landon goes through the roof, holy cow, dude. We were talking about this before the show, and you're like, hey, you know what? Let's save it for the show. So let's get into in jiu-jitsu news recently. It's my man Nicky Rod, the black belt slayer. He recently earned his black belt, I think last week.
He,
So we
he did.
I've never met Nicky Rod. So you actually had the chance to meet him at Worlds this past year, and we were talking about. I mean, he's only been training jiu-jitsu 5 years, which is just. I mean, that's up there with like fastest black belt, right? I mean, BJ Penn was what 5 years,
BJ Penn, yeah, 4 or 5 years actually.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Nicky is a collegiate wrestler,
Yep.
and Nicky's main. I mean, he's got the tag as the Natty King now. Being that he's all natural. No steroid use, none of that. So I have my suspicions, but again, until we get some tests or something, But my question was, how can you go? Because I mean, he'll flex 40 pounds in a couple months. Like he'll puff up and then he'll lean up, and he's had great success on the ADCCs and no gis all the way through. So did you have a chance to talk to Nicky at Worlds when you were out there?
I did not. Not no. I got.
They
I saw him, and he was just a couple feet away from me. I was talking to one of our athletes after their match, but you look at that picture and he looks jacked. I mean, he obviously is. But in person, it's funny because some athletes look like much smaller
yeah
because they have this big persona like on TV, and and how they, I don't know if TV is friendly to some people,
yeah.
but he's taller in person than he looks. He's about 6'3", but he's leaner. Like right now, he looked very lean.
Yeah. Six
So he
three.
does.
That's a hand. I mean, that's a handful of a grappler. I mean, to deal with
Yeah,
someone who's as muscular as Nicky and being 6'3", being 6'3", because a lot of guys that tall, they're kind of gumpy. Like they just they've got like lean legs and everything's really lean. I wouldn't, I mean, like he's like yoked. So let's talk about briefly. I know this wasn't the topic of the podcast. How, I mean, nobody is going to dispute Nicky Rod's black belt because of his accomplishments. He's a Craig Jones black belt. Craig
yeah.
Jones, obviously being one of the most popular, maybe controversial names in jiu-jitsu. But you hear the 10 years to black belt or 15 years to black belt, but no one's going to dispute Nicky's. Why do you think that is?
I was having this conversation with some people actually just the other day in that Worlds, and so um, we talked about promoting in jujitsu and what it takes and what the different criteria is. We talked about it with Alvarez. You and I spoke about it.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different ways to kind of justify why you're getting promoted.
Sure.
Time, training, competing, age, and things like that. But he is considered a professional athlete.
For
Like as
sure.
far as
For
jujitsu
sure.
goes, yeah, he's a professional athlete. That's all he does. That's his full time job. And I think he's I have to look up what he's making per fight right now, but I think if I had to guess, I'd say he's making
I feel like he's
10
not
to
taking
20,
oh,
maybe
10 or
10.
20. I was
Yeah,
going to say 50. I was going to say I don't think he's taking a fight for less than 50.
yeah, maybe.
Wow.
But so he has competed at the absolute pinnacle of nogi grappling, and he's medaled he medaled bronze his first time, and his second time he took silver and he lost to Gordon Ryan.
Mm,
So when you're beating along the way, you're beating world champions, you're beating ADC champions, and we'll just use that as one example. But if you can prove you could beat the best guys in the world, then you definitely, wherever you're at, you definitely should go to the next belt level.
sure.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's you can't argue that.
Yeah, and I think that's a especially like some of the brackets now at Worlds or ADCC. I mean, they're 100-man brackets or 70-man brackets, and they truly are the cream of the crop. I mean, the investment of time and sacrifice and physical training and money to go compete at Worlds or even ADCC is substantial. And so like they're not
Yeah.
going to do it if they haven't been if they haven't been training for it.
Yeah, and you can't get there. You cannot get to ADCC by luck. Like you really have to you have to prove yourself. The ADCC trials, I think, like in order to win the trials in your weight division, like there's like 8 matches of absolute elite grapplers from all over the world are coming to pockets of the United States, Europe, and Asia.
Mm,
Like, if you don't make it here, if you don't win the ADCC trials here on the East Coast, these guys are flying to the West Coast. If they don't win it in the West Coast, they're flying to Asia or Europe. So um, it's not like a 3 matches and you win. Like some of these are
yeah.
8+ brackets, and they're tough.
Yeah, I was curious. So I was looking at what Nicky Rod was making. He says because they were talking about him possibly doing MMA. Nicky says we're nearing in on 6 figures per match nowadays. So
Good for
Rodriguez
him.
said that so I would need like 7 figures to hop in a cage. I could do a few matches, make a few mil, or do 1 figure and make a mil. That's fun to me. But that what also is the difference between MMA and jiu-jitsu is that jiu-jitsu is very fun. It's enjoyable the entire time and it's not that much stress. Fighting is not as much fun. For sure, some fighters love what they do, but the consequence, worst case scenario, is much worse than the worst case scenario of jiu-jitsu. I mean, that's kind of like my stance on MMA, right? Like if an MMA match goes really south, like
Yeah,
dude, you're looking at lifelong injuries.
yeah.
Like honestly,
It,
and I
it,
think for someone to I think for someone for Nicky to point that out, I mean, he's not a coward. I mean, he's certainly capable, but he's also a realist, which I think that plays in really well to what we're our topic of what we're talking about today. Um like you could do a jiu-jitsu tournament every weekend. And
he self-proclaimed the best-looking guy or the pretty boy of jiu-jitsu. So
Nicky
he used to be a
Rodriguez?
he used to be a model before he started grappling. He was a bouncer and he did modeling, and then kind of moved up and elevated into like grappling, and so he's
I guess it depends where you're like who you're modeling for. Like I don't know. I can't even begin to judge what women are looking for in a man. But like jujitsu guys in general, like they're not pretty. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't classify you. I mean, we're kind of like ugly. We have like furrowed brows and jacked up ears. When I think of like pretty guys, I'm thinking like I don't know.
When's
Like
the have you ever used a filter on your Instagram or your photo
I
shop?
try
I
not
mean,
to because they yeah, like it's like you're crossing into the realm of like making me look like a woman. Like I don't need to, I'm quite proud of my masculine appearance, like my imperfections, if you will. So, but yeah, I would think like good looking guys. I would think like Johnny Depp or I don't know, Ryan Reynolds might be like a pretty guy, maybe. I don't know. I could see like he's got the physique for a model, but um yeah, so that's so let's segue his MMA convo
yeah,
into today. We're talking about the effectiveness of jiu-jitsu for two different things. We're talking about the effectiveness of jiu-jitsu for mental health and
yeah.
for self-defense. So, the age-old topic, right? And it's always good to get you're always bound to get some type of clickbait or something going on here. Is jiu-jitsu practical for a self-defense scenario, like we'll say a street fight? I mean, is it practical?
That's probably one of the biggest objections or, questions that, well, jujitsu doesn't work in the street. And, well, you can't, this is not going to work. So, it's interesting. People who don't know that much, but maybe a little bit about what jujitsu is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm never going to go to the ground in a street fight, or I can't use that in the street. That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So let me. I mean, I would. I guess I would. My first question to add to anybody who is asking that is: have you ever been in a street fight? I mean, like realistic, and it's not like bragging rights. It's not like a. We're not counting matches here, but I mean, like that's the question. Have you ever actually been involved in raw chaotic violence? And then if the answer is no, then I feel like you're removed from the conversation, a little bit. But
Yeah.
I'm also going to answer that question with a couple videos here. So first one, let's start
Well,
with
before you post that,
okay.
I was a teenager, and I was getting into some fights at school, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So in high school, my uncle, I know he's not listening to this, but he told me one thing. He said 99% of people who win the fight, a street fight, get the first punch.
Mm.
So all things considered, say even, I definitely would agree with that. And that changed a lot for me when I was fighting as a teenager on the street, which is regularly versus getting the first punch in versus not. So, but go ahead, play that video.
I think so.
Let's see
There's
if that
there's a
applies
couple
here.
of them. Yeah, there's a couple of them. We'll play. Let's play. Let's see, which one is this? Yeah, we'll show this one first. Now, I need to preface this video. This kid, the jujitsu kid here, um, he was the aggressor, and he was. I don't know the context of this. I don't know what happened to where they got in this argument. He threw the first punch, but I mean, the guy he's going against has minimum 80 or 90 pounds on him. So let's see what
Yeah,
he's got here.
yeah. This is not about who is right, who is wrong. This is about
Correct.
dissecting a physical
Yeah.
altercation because
So
the kid seemed like a cocky
yeah.
kid.
So I mean, let's go back. So here the kid's screaming. He throws a punch. The guy, my man, seems unfazed. Like just charges right into him
Oh,
with no really skill of
oh
any
man.
description. Yeah. And I've
And
always wondered, he's punching
what?
backwards here, right? And so the kid's taking he's taking some shots, but I mean his adrenaline's pumping and he's got the back control. Pop. I would not.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean
why
homeboy
is that
probably
didn't knock him out?
he probably
Ooh,
knocked his head on the so here we are tapping out in a street fight, which you don't get to do. And then I stopped the match because he
yeah,
proceeded to get up and
yeah,
take matters into his own hands. But so that's one scenario, right? And the back take is I mean it gets a lot of flack too because people say, oh, you take someone's back, his buddies are gonna come up and curb stomp you.
yeah,
I I, I mean, show me like your chances of winning multiple on one in any scenario are they go down drastically. So
Yeah.
they go down drastically.
Well, yeah, unless you are a stand up with some hands and feet and you have a lot of space to move around,
Mm,
you have to hit move and unless you have that kind of space, but uh you know uh you definitely don't want to go to the floor if you have multiple attackers you're trying to
of
address.
course,
I
of
I would.
course, of course.
But
Well,
saying that, like, we've all heard this before. Well, if I'm gonna get jumped, if I have 3, 4 guys, I'm gonna take one out and make sure he pays. And that's kind of what a lion does in the jungle. He gets attacked by all these hyenas, and he cannot handle 50 hyenas. But the lion always is gonna take one out and make that one pay and suffer, while other people are taking little shots at him. And the street fight, I would, if I was in that situation, I would definitely do that. If I know there's nowhere to run and I have to fight, I'm going to take one out, break their ankle or their kneecap, or really really put one out of commission.
well, and and what a lot of people don't realize, right, is if you're actually being jumped. Yeah, I mean, because there's not a one answer to this, right?
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu, multiple attackers. Yeah, I mean, your best case, probably best case realistically, is you might do damage to one and then just kind of curl up in the fetal position and hope you can hope for the best, right? I mean, that's about it. But multiple attackers, now you're getting into a life-threatening situation. There was
yeah,
an article, I don't have it pulled up. A kid actually got jumped and he was killed at like some highs behind a high school, like in some, I can't remember where it was. But the kids, all like 3 or 4 kids were charged with homicide, and I mean, at that situation, if you carry a CPL and or you have a knife, I mean, the judge is gonna I mean, it's gonna be a long drawn out process, but like you can now use deadly force. Hang on, Daddy's doing a podcast on. So you can now use deadly force, and so people don't want to think about, oh, you're gonna shoot an unarmed assailant. Well, okay, it's 4-on-1 though, right? So it's 4-on-1. That's a life threatening situation, just like carjacking, just like home invasion, just like sexual assault. Those inherently your life is in danger. Secondly, though, far more, far more of the conversation is the situational awareness. Like you're just always head on a swivel. And jujitsu, I believe jujitsu, really, I'd say any combat training will give you that. Like
yeah,
I don't know too many actual skilled fighters going around getting in street fights. I mean, outside of
yeah.
like where alcohol's not involved, I don't know too many.
Right.
Like I really don't. So I think that the 4-on-1 that argument doesn't hold water for any martial art. If there's multiple attackers. But if you have been, I mean, case in point, this one went to the ground. And then we're gonna look at another video of this guy. He's a black belt, and there's a situation with his daughter. I don't know exactly again the context, but let's look at the technique here. So you can see he's trying to talk him down. You can see he's like, "Hey, listen, I don't want any smoke." Boom, back roll. He clinched up, back roll, and now he's in trouble. I mean, that is not good for the home team here. I want to go back to even just this dump, right? Like he's got the front headlock and that sort of hip switch sit out. Like that tells me you know what you're doing. He's waiting for him to posture up and boom, come on up. So he's got looks like, I don't know if that's a Darce or if he's just squeezing. He takes the mount and here's I want to pause. He's a black belt according to this video, and he's got the composure now. So he has one of two choices. He can lay into this dude, ground and pound, but instead, again, there was something going on with his daughter. He's telling them, he's like, look at it in the video. He's like, you're lucky I don't do anymore. Are we done here? Are we done? Imagine if cops knew this. If every cop had this level of grappling experience to maintain and control and control somebody, to detain them. He's literally having a conversation. The guy on bottom knows the game's over. He's not going to go home with a fractured skull or anything bloody or anything, and everyone gets to go home to their family. and I bet homeboy on bottom learned a lesson. That's that's the appeal to jujitsu to me. That's the appeal to jujitsu because like you don't have to put someone in a hospital as opposed to the striking arts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. You know, have you ever been to the go kart? Those places that have
Oh
go
yeah,
karts and putt golf.
oh yeah.
So what they do is somehow there's some type of magnetic switch in the backside where you're only allowed to go a certain mile per hour. And I don't know what the secret is. I don't know what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
secret
They definitely
is,
throttle it or feather it.
and they do it remotely, so it has to be like magnetic or something. And jiu-jitsu is real comparable because you actually are able to control your opponent is physical output, and there's nothing they can do about it. Like they could put their foot on the gas, but they are not going anywhere, just like a go-kart. And you saw that in that match. The guy is just laying there saying physically he's like he submitted. He knew that there's nothing he could do. His body is being controlled, and he was helpless.
And that's and anyone so anyone who's been in a grappling room has felt that. And they it's really actually really common that we see that a lot. Like people come in for a trial, whatever, they get mounted and they just give up. They're like, oh, okay, you've won, right? Because they're in such a vulnerable spot and they don't know the defense, or they don't know what to do from there. um and they just give up. I mean, they concede, and that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu as it pertains to like physical combat, right?
Yeah.
As it pertains to physical combat, what is let's talk about the mental aspect though. So what I mean, this could probably be a whole separate podcast just on its own. um saw this Yahoo News article. It's a little bit older, but this one talks about the surprising psychological and meditative benefits of jujitsu. So I would ask, number one, surprising to who? It's certainly not those who train, but maybe to the public. Um, what do you think they're talking about? I didn't go on to read the full article. I just snagged the headline. What do you think they're
Have you?
talking about? Go ahead.
Well, let me tell you. Have you seen that movie? I believe it's called Limitless,
With
and it's
Bradley Cooper with the
um
pill. It's got the pill.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but there's a girl from one of the four Avengers. She actually they put uh, they insert like a whole shipment of this pill inside her, and it slowly starts to break down, and it gives her like superpowers, and it slowly gives her different levels of awareness, comprehension, interpretation. She learns more, she learns better, she learns faster, and it progresses over the course of the movie. And Have you seen that movie?
Is it with the one of Brad? I mean, it was a long time ago. Does it have Bradley Cooper in it?
I don't think he's in there. I
What am I?
think it was
Which one? Which one
what's
am I
the
thinking of?
I believe it was called Limitless.
Limitless.
I think Morgan Freeman is in there in the movie, and she
Oh
was
yeah,
former.
I'm thinking of the Bradley Cooper one. Morgan. Yeah, Brad. Limitless. There's one with Limitless, and they have a yeah. But then there's another one with Chris Hemsworth, which is really strange. I don't know. There's so many movies. Yeah, Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking about the older one, but it's
Okay.
a very good movie. It's a very good movie. In the movie, the girl cannot stop learning.
Hmm.
She cannot stop learning. She cannot stop retaining information physically. She excels like at anticipating what any attackers are going to do, what her opponents are going to do. And I would compare jujitsu to the psychological growth of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I definitely would compare it to Limitless. Like it is like taking a slow release pill when you first
Hmm.
start, and it really magnifies your growth physically, your comprehension, your awareness. your senses about being present at your work, at your job, and
Um,
in a fight. I would really compare it to that. We should change we should change it to the limitless pill, jujitsu pill. Or I mean, I always said if you could put jujitsu into a pill, it would be illegal. It makes you feel so good. Like,
certainly, and I think there's it, so few activities reproduce the same multiple benefits of it. This Yahoo article is going into the meditative benefits of jujitsu. Meditative? I mean, like, if what they're referring to by meditative is that I drive home with the radio off in silence, thinking about, like all the mistakes I made at class, or thinking about how to get past half guard. Like, if that's what they're talking about, because you think about things. I mean, we have guys come in and like, I'm thinking of Cody. He's been working on this half guard Rubik's cube for 3 weeks. Like Colin's giving him a hard time, and he's like, I can't, nothing. And it's just every day he comes in, he's here to attack and troubleshoot this problem, and it's this relentless endeavor. Because there you have the benefits of exercise, which are well known, the endorphins and and everything that comes from exercise. You have the benefits of a group community workout, a place of belonging. You have those benefits, but then you also have the personal growth aspect, and there is no fast pass. There is no cheat code. There is no connection that can make you skip ahead of the line. There is none of that. You can either, it takes what it takes. If you want to rank up to the next belt, if you want to win the tournament, if you want to win worlds, if you want to, like, it takes what it takes. And nobody, I would like to, I'd be real curious. Like, I wish we could go undercover and, like, offer, like, play dumb, like, play as a white belt, and offer school owners like 10 or 20 or 30,000 for a black belt, and, like, have them on hidden cam and see I don't know a school owner that would hand out a black belt for 20 or 30 grand. I don't know one, because the hit to their reputation would be tenfold that. They would be they would be ridiculed and ostracized in the community. So it takes what it takes, and there's a level in which money can't buy that. Money can't buy the skill. Period. And we've seen a lot of those benefits. I mean, even just in yourself, coach. I mean, you've trained enough people and coached enough people. What have you seen? What are some of the greatest success stories you've seen in the psychological and mental health benefits of jiu-jitsu?
I mean, you know, being on the mat every day, there isn't a day that I don't hear it makes me feel better. I feel better. I'm a
Mm.
better father. I'm a better husband. I'm a better everything. And I think that article is very interesting because there is a meditative. When you hear meditate, you
Mm-hmm.
hear like the yoga, people sitting with their hands on their knees and meditating in quiet and silence.
Yeah.
But I would agree that it doesn't happen like often, but it happens. I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but it does happen regularly. Where I do feel like I'm meditating uh, while I'm training. Like,
During matches.
yeah, yeah, I really do.
Mm.
And to take it a step further, that type of like connection of where I'm at in the moment, really the only closest thing I could think of is and it doesn't happen often, when I'm like praying or
Mm.
worshiping. But you know, it's so easy to get distracted by outside noises and factors. But yeah, there is. I would agree a meditative portion, and ironically, you're doing something so physically
Yeah.
disruptive to what you're trying to do
Yeah.
uh, in jujitsu.
So you know what I could say. I would say a similar. Again, you can kind of pull from other experiences of this, from other experiences in life. I would say a similar. We don't have any real emergencies 99% of our life. Like there's nothing that requires your attention right now. I mean,
Yeah,
very, very seldom. And they're emergencies at that point, right? But I mean, we're talking like not very seldom. The only other scenario I can really think where it's like I have to be high, like super focused, like hot, like I'm all in on this moment right now. It would be in like when we're doing paintball, and your people are shooting at you. I would imagine, like combat vets kind of simulate that same focus, and or I would say hunting, but only hunting once you're about to take a shot, which lasts like 12 seconds, right? So imagine like, and hunters sit for God knows how long for that 12-second, like hyper focused decision making right now. Jiu-jitsu classes, you get to do that for 90 minutes, and you don't have the luxury of thinking about something else. Like you don't have the luxury of thinking about stressors or thinking about and I don't know about you, I feel like when I'm at class, it's a hard reset to my operating system. I'll go into class with a clouded head of anything and everything. Anything and everything. And then I'll come out and it's like, okay, we've rebooted it. Which what do you want to start opening now? Like what do you actually want to think about? Because rather than being distracted with just noise, you're like, okay, that I feel good. Let's get some clarity and you know go on with whatever else we were gonna do. But it's a hard reset to really prioritize those things.
yeah. Like jujitsu and martial arts is like a 1,000 piece puzzle. When you open up that box, it's like these things are so freaking small. You need a magnifying glass to actually see what you're looking at. And then as time goes on, that 1,000 piece puzzle turns into a 500 piece puzzle.
Mm,
And as time goes on, then that 500 piece puzzle turns into a 100 piece puzzle.
mm,
So now you're not connecting things like this small, you're connecting things like this big. So it
mm.
becomes easier to piece together what the objective and goals in jiu-jitsu, and that hard reset off of the mat turns life outside of the mat into a 100 piece puzzle or 50 piece puzzle that started out as a 1,000 piece puzzle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and jiu-jitsu definitely helps you like put things together like that and makes things instead of so small, it makes a small a bit a problem, it makes it bigger to see and easier to connect and find a solution for.
So I was thinking about this. Why do you think it is that um because there are other things to help with your mental health. There are other activities. Again, like if we're going to be fair, I mean, there are people who are into CrossFit. There are people who are into powerlifting. There are other things that help your mental health. Why consider jujitsu? Because we get a. I was talking with my brother Phil. I was actually looking at competing at the Arnold's down in Columbus, and I said, hey, I might need to shack up or whatever. He lives down there. He's like, cool. I'll bring my nephew Falcon. And I said, okay, yeah, it's at Arnold, so it's a pretty intimidating event. He's like, oh well, we were just down at Columbus for Comic Con, and I was like, it's like slightly different clientele from the Arnold's Classic to Comic Con, and then but then we talk about it. I was like, actually, not really. I mean, there's a lot of nerds who train jujitsu. Like I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of like guys too, right? But like, there's a lot of guys in Katskis and Dragon Ball Z geese and Ninja Turtle gear and like just like 90s kids nerds who have like found jujitsu. So if we're going to be fair, there are other platforms for mental health benefits. I mean, it's certainly not the only one. There's traditional therapy, right? What would be like your advice to, let's say you're talking to your brother or your cousin or your a close friend who's considering those traditional platforms like therapy? And again, I'm not dogging it, but like therapy or like yoga, where people have claimed those versus jujitsu. Like, what would be your, if you were talking to your friend or your close family?
Yeah, I would say, um, you know, computer programming and coding, writing codes, is about taking a lot of data and solving and piecing together a lot of different problems. Like that's what coding and computer programming is, I think. So
Right.
that's not my that's not my specialty,
That's
but
my
it's like,
layman. That's my layman's explanation of computer coding. That's all right. I have no one here is going to fact check you.
okay, cool. So, so it's really about taking like scramble amount of information, piecing it together, and making sense of it, creating a sentence out of
Mm,
like a bunch of different numbers and letters and things like that. And now that takes a lot of brain thought. You have to have a lot of brain activity, and you have to really process, and you have to problem solve with your brain. So CrossFit and lifting weights, I'll use those as an example. Those give you the physical aspect. They're very, very physical, but weights don't hit back. So I would say to anybody considering like jujitsu and kind of doing a comparison, like jujitsu has a physical and it
mm,
also has an intellectual portion, and
yeah,
one cannot you cannot be physical with no intellectual understanding and
sure.
strategy of jujitsu, and vice versa. You cannot be intellectual and have no physical ability. So it really takes the meeting of um, physical and mental and intellectual, and I think that's something that is very, very important. Now you do have to have some intellectual capacity to lift weights and to do CrossFit and other things, but you're talking about a dead weight, like
Yeah.
like you're talking about something that is never going to give you any resistance. It's isometric resistance. It's coming one way. So in jujitsu, the resistance comes from all around you. So you really have to problem solve another person trying to problem solve at the same time as you're trying to problem solve.
So
And it's
yeah,
whose problem solving ability uh, at that moment in time has a better formula for addressing that conflict.
yeah. I think I think you brought up something really good. Again, we're not downplaying like CrossFit is, I'm sure, extremely hard. I've never done it, but I don't really have a desire to front squat on a medicine ball, so
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's difficult. No
Yeah.
one is denying that it's difficult
Yeah.
to master CrossFit. It's difficult to master yoga. I mean, there's a lot of activities that are physically difficult,
Yeah.
but 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 there's the technique for a deadlift doesn't change.
Yeah.
You just like, hey, every time you come in, the technique doesn't change. There will not be a new variance to the barbell will not grow a brain overnight and change how it's going to resist back to you.
Yeah.
your, your teammates are growing and learning and adapting to your specific game. So it's like fighting. You mentioned the that Limitless movie, but I'll pull in the Avengers. I think it's Black Widow. She like ends up fighting some cyborg sinister agent who learns as the fight goes on. So the longer that they fight, the more she's picking up, she's got this AI, she's learning Black Widow's techniques and she's adapting to them. So it's a and
Yeah.
that is the so now every time you come into the room, not only is it going to be just as physically demanding as it was before, it's going to be far more intellectually demanding and I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's 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 draining. It's mentally draining and it's mentally frustrating when something that worked last week on Jimmy no longer works because Jimmy adapted and learned. And
I
I think go ahead.
I would argue that after like 17 years of jujitsu, I would argue that the intellectual portion is equal or greater of a challenge to the physical portion of jujitsu.
Oh,
So for
no,
any
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, so anybody thinking about starting Brazilian jiu-jitsu and trying it out, I wouldn't worry about getting in shape. I wouldn't worry about like, okay, let me get in shape to do jiu-jitsu. I would worry about, do you think you have the mental capacity to problem solve day in and day out? Are you strong enough mentally not to stay in the fight? It's to problem solve and put pieces, 1,000 pieces together to 500 to 250 to 100 to 50. Do you have that type of mental capacity and resilience? I would challenge that.
I would I coach, I would even go I would say it's like 70-30
Yeah.
intellectual physical because the whole point of jujitsu is that it's not you're you're using leverage and physics for the move to work. I mean, we often say like if you feel like you're working too hard, you're probably doing the move wrong, or there's a better way to do the move.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was like 70-30 physically versus mental, then smaller guys would have a much harder time against bigger guys than they do. Not to say size doesn't matter; it just
Yeah.
matters less. And and that is there's the portion of that, and like any other activity, when you're learning it, I mean, it's going to be really humbling for quite some time. I mean, and that's just the
And you know, I
that's
want to
the
touch
nature
on
of
that
it,
because because the humbling that we're talking about is not really going into the gym and getting beat up by somebody like half your size.
right?
Like for me,
Well,
as a coach, the humbling that I mean that can happen any day of the week in jujitsu. Don't get me
right.
wrong, but really, what's humbling is you don't have the answer to problems, and we give you a basic math equation.
Yep.
What's 10 plus 12? What's 5 plus 6? Like they're very simple, but you're not able to physically uh, um, address a problem that simple. Like jujitsu is very simple, but it takes some forensic detail into saying, okay, let me take a closer look at this, and am I able to solve a problem uh, that is so simple yet so complicated? So it's not. I wouldn't say it's the the ego is a big thing, but this. Do you have this? And it's all about, are you able to stay um, disciplined and persistent in understanding that we're solving a physical equation with our brain, and it's not really it's not much more than that.
the the humbling aspect. I mean, there is the physical of getting beat, but there, I think about this probably more than I should, and there was like we work hard to try and break the to make it as presentable as possible, right? To make the moves as presentable and digestible as possible, and because we don't want to overload people when they just get started. But then you have the, oh well, we haven't learned that yet. I'm sorry, dude. Like there's no point in me teaching you 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 moves. Like go try it on the battlefield. Like go try it on the battlefield. And then you can kind of collect that, and then there should be this curiosity or this hunger for coach. I know you showed us the armbar. I was rolling with Bryce Pegram the other day, and I think it was our first match. He's like, I know my armbar was good, but it didn't work on you. I'm like, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, because that's like, you're going to have to learn to set up triple attacks. Like, that's just step number one, and he was, I think he was confident in his one move, but you need to be able to set up a series of attacks, and that is the true. I don't play chess, but that is the true chess game of it. Like, you need to be thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. If I sell this armbar, they defend, and then I go to my triangle, but then they stack up on that, so then I own plata and come. Like, it's your and you're. This is all while mentally you're 3 steps ahead, and your body's now trailing behind. And as you get older, which I'm learning, and sometimes your body doesn't always cooperate as much as but the physical limitations, it's far less. And I think it's just the mental aspect, because there's everywhere else you go, like, they won't. It's just not that humbling. Like, you will see success sooner. I mean, you'll see success sooner in just about anything you do. More success at a sooner pace than jujitsu, and I don't really know if there's a I don't really know if there's a way around that just yet to expedite that. You know, what do you think?
I think jujitsu is very similar to like war, and war is really about like creating illusions, making somebody think you're doing one thing when you're really trying to do another. And war is about setting up traps, and war is about taking risks but minimizing the negative effects of your risks. War is about finding spaces where your opponent will not be looking and doesn't expect you to be going at. So war is about trying to uh, trick your opponent into thinking that you really are trying to set something up in one area but doing it in another. And that is the tactical and the strategy portion of jujitsu, and it's really really fun because it's like it's you're playing mind games, and you have a uh, uh, mental traps you're trying to set up with your opponent, and it's really really fun doing that with your body. And it's not um, it's not a personal thing. It's like a game. You're playing a game and you're playing chess. We hear chess with the human body, but if you think war, there's more at stake there. And jujitsu definitely teaches you how to be a strategist.
Yeah, I think of Casey, whose last name is evading me at the moment. I did
Fritz,
um Casey from
Fritz.
Palm. No, not
Uh,
Casey. No, Casey from Palm. I want to say Cornelius, but I don't think that's it. I did a podcast with him years ago, and he mentioned something. He said in jiu-jitsu, you can be in a hurry to make a poor decision, to make a bad decision.
yeah.
And I was like, man, like that's true. And that's true a lot. So it kind of it teaches you to evaluate, survey the area, like evaluate the situation as it is. And then if I mean, inherently, any move you're going to do, there is no risk-free move in jiu-jitsu. There isn't. There's always a counter to the counter to the counter to the counter. So it's, I'm going to initiate this move, and then if they counter, I'll do this, but at some point there's a risk that you're going to have to take. I mean, if you do, a good way to lose every jiu-jitsu match is to always wait for your opponent to go first. Always wait for your opponent to do their move and then do something else. If you're never initiating anything, you're not going to win a lot of jiu-jitsu matches. You're going to have to be the aggressor at some points and take some risk. And in the West, in America, the risks associated with decision making are like, they're not that great. I mean, they're not that great. And so the risk associated with jiu-jitsu is you make a mistake, you get choked out, right? That hurts heavier than, I lost $50 or $100, or or $500 on this decision making. You know, so like that's where that decision making and the I would say the tolerance for risk as well. So while Coach Muhammad steps away, I want to briefly talk about this kind of what we have coming up here. How do I do? It's going to go into what we have coming up in the new year. Obviously, we're planning our tournament schedule. You know, we do our annual barbecues and things like that. Do you have anything coming up in 2024 that you're super excited for with Metro? Have you written your goals yet? I know you're always the pioneer of that.
I did not. My goals really don't change from year to year. Yeah, they're more like 5 and 10 year goals, but you know, along the way, kind of look at them and maybe add a short one or a small one. But I don't do yearly goals, especially at the end of the year. Especially, I learned that many years ago.
What do you mind sharing some of your goals?
You know, mine are as far as jujitsu goes, is to continue to build you know, the best athletes you know, in the world, to prove that, you know, we have some of the best athletes in the world, um, and that can compete with the best athletes in the world. Um, so right now, you know, I don't want to say we are the best. I like to say we can compete with the best, because
Mm,
on any given day, you know, the best could be beat. The best in the world could be beat by the fifth best in the world on
sure,
any given day.
absolutely.
So, so yeah, so you know, humbly, I would like to say that we want to continue to build the best athletes and compete at the biggest stages. I know we new year, new schedule, so we're going to have Pans Worlds coming up, Nogi Worlds, Gi. Um, so those are probably some big ones.
What do you think about the ADCC picking up steam?
You know, I think it's awesome, man. Like the amount of growth that ADC has is growth and awareness to jujitsu. Forget about people who don't know
Mm,
about jujitsu. Like just the people just getting into it, like you know, trying out. Uh, yeah, just the people trying out jujitsu for like just getting started. Once they dabble in and get their foot in the door like a beginner, they realize, holy cow, like this thing is big. It's a
yeah,
lot bigger than we thought.
yeah,
So I think that you know, for the people getting started, it really validates that this is a very, very big movement, and I want to be part of it.
absolutely. Well, Coach, I know you got to get on with your day. I appreciate you taking the time, and guys. So if you haven't, wherever you're watching this, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, I don't think we're on Instagram today, but do whatever action you can take. If you can follow us, like us, you know, comment below, share this with your friends. That helps us get the word out there a lot. And then if you're thinking about jujitsu, listen, we have Southgate, we have Canton opening up. But even if you're not, I mean, if you're not in our area, right? Like we had a guy message. Coach was like, "Yo, we're getting people messaging us from like Vegas or whatever. Can you check the Facebook ads?" I was like, "Dude, that's just it's just organic. Like they just like what we're putting out. You know, we'll help you find a school wherever you're at. So consider it. Again, our goal is to grow the jiu-jitsu industry, and if that's with Metro, that's awesome. We're happy to have you. If that's with another academy, then we'll help you. We'll help you find that wherever you guys are at. Just shoot us a message, and we'll help you find one where you're at. Coach, you got anything to add before we sign off?
No, I mean 2024 is here. If you have any physical fitness goals, you
Mm.
know, the gyms are loaded. January, February, March,
I hate the gym.
they
I hate the gym
are
on a
loaded.
good day. Yeah, but man,
Yeah, so you know what? Include jujitsu. Look into Brazilian jiu-jitsu for getting into shape, mentally, physically, and you know, just try it out here. Like you said, anywhere. Try out Brazilian jiu-jitsu for your 2024 new fitness goals.
awesome. All right, you guys. Well, Coach David, Professor Muhammad, as always, we'll see you on the mats.